Plaintiff Leticia Anderson says she had a rough childhood because her mom was a drug addict and a prostitute, but she was always raised to believe the defendant was her half-sister. However, Leticia wants proof, so she petitioned the court for a sibling DNA test. Defendant Leticia Anderson first met Leticia when she was 8 years old, and she was always told that they were sisters. Leticia feels bad because she knows other family members have turned their backs on Leticia, so she hopes the DNA test will bring some closure for them.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
All right, you ladies are here to determine whether you are siblings, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and we've taken tests to determine that, and I'll allow you all to give me your some background and opinions, and then we'll look at the test.
So I guess I'll start by first saying that I don't consider myself a victim. I am a survivor. From everything that I've been through, I've always been raised knowing that, been told that me and Leticia are siblings. We were raised in different cities. We weren't around each other often growing up. I had more so of a rough childhood. My mother was on drugs. My mother was on prostituting. And it...
What years were these?
Excuse me?
What years? How old were you doing this? When you first learned that your mother was prostitute?
I say about 10.
Okay.
About 10.
How did you find out?
Because we used to get woke up in the middle of the night to go find her with my father, and we would locate her on the Hostro.
To feed a drug habit or something?
Probably so, because her and my stepfather, they both had drug habits. But I think it was more so that she wanted to be out there because we had a house, she had a man. She used to just leave in the middle of the night and just go do whatever she did, and we would have to find her.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say I can remember, my stepfather and my mom ended up breaking up. And when they broke up, that's when everything was like really bad for me, because my stepfather was the one who kept the structure in the home and basically took care of me like I was his own child, because he had me ever since I was 2 weeks old. So when they broke up, we went to stay briefly with my mom. I don't remember having any family meals. I don't remember going to church. I don't remember her ever telling me she loved me.
You have any good memories?
Not really. Not really with my mother. You know, it was more of my grandmother. So,
did your mother ever recover?
Excuse me?
Did your mother ever recover?
No, she's actually still doing the same thing today.
So how many years has it been now?
Well, I'm 44 years old.
Make me count.
I was about 11 when I jumped out the window of a second-story building, because my mom had some men come there and started packing my stuff. And I'm like, okay, where am I going? You know, and all I remember is just watching her eyes and her face. And she was just like, the way she looked, I knew I had to get out of there.
And no other family member intervened after your stepfather left, knowing that she was in that condition and neglecting you all like that?
Yes, we had a host of aunties, my grandmother's sisters, because my grandma ended up passing away. So
how old were you then?
I want to say about 15.
Then you went to aunts. Your aunts were supportive?
Yeah, they really were. We went from aunt to aunt, wherever we can go. I remember it was times that the aunts didn't even know we were coming. We would just go to visit them, and we'd go use the bathroom or start playing, and then my mom would be gone for months, so we wouldn't see her no more.
And you don't know what type of drugs she was addicted to?
Crack, I believe back then.
You don't think you can get her in here?
Oh yeah, I can. I can. I want to go back to reiterate on the part where I was telling you where we stayed with my mom. This was after her and my father broke up. So we stayed with her briefly. I do remember sleeping on the hardwood floor like this. I didn't have a pillow, only a blanket. Her and my sister, they both had rooms and beds. My sister, which is my biological sister with my mother, had her second baby at 15. So now that I'm older, I understand it a little better. They were double dating. My mom often used her to get drugs. So this particular time when these two guys came over our house, I'll say that they were pimps because I've never seen a pastor look like this. So they had on suits, you know, clean nails, clean everything. One guarded the door. One started packing my clothes up. So my sister, she's standing there holding her baby, and I see her crying. And then I'm looking at my mom like, okay, is this real? You know, and my mom, the look on her face, and she's just helping them pack my stuff up. The only exit I seen was a open window on a second. We lived on a second floor of the apartment building. And I just ran and jumped out the window, and I never went back. I ran down the street to my stepdad's house, the one I told you that raised me. He lived probably about 10, 15 blocks. So I just ran all the way there, got him. He went back with his gun, and the guys were gone. After that, I just grabbed the clothes that they had packed up for me, and I just left and went and stayed with my stepdad. Now, he wasn't living too good either because he didn't have any hot water or lights, but it didn't matter to me because that's where I felt safe at. Always been raised knowing that, been told that me and Leticia are siblings. We were raised in different cities. We weren't around each other often growing up. I had more so of a rough childhood. My mother was on drugs. My mother was on prostituting.
Defendant Leticia Anderson believes the plaintiff is her half-sister, but the plaintiff has doubts because her mother was a drug-addicted prostitute.
What city was this in?
Sacramento, California.
A city that many people don't necessarily identify with large drug-addicted community. But when was this, the 80s?
Yeah.
Mid-80s?
Early 80s.
When crack was dumped on the country, on the inner cities. And people talk about why I am so focused on crack, and I like to talk about it to litigants and suggest and suspect that they are drug addicted or humiliate them when they are. Well, two things. One, humiliation works. Every crackhead I've humiliated and sent to rehab, every single one have come back and said thank you. Every single one. So you all uppity ups that don't like the way I talk to folks whose life and reality I know because I've seen and lived amongst it, I don't care what you think. That's why I want your mother to come in here.
Yes.
So I can give her some of that tough love and talk sense to her and humiliate her. And I will tell her, as I tell people, I am calling you a crackhead on national television for all your family and friends to see. Now you going back to your neighborhood after you come out of rehab and do the same thing and make a fool out of yourself. No, that it's like a Scared Straight program I had when I was a district judge with kids. Scared Straight, scared into rehab. And that's why I want her to come. I want anybody who's dealing with someone in their family who does not want to get clean and they continue abusing or neglecting other family and friends. Bring her in here, please. Best way you can get her in, because those are the stories I've heard hundreds of times. Not as bad. That's probably one of the 5 worst stories I've heard on the crack addiction. But I've seen other stories where crack addicts sell their children. Wow. Haven't you heard of that?
Yeah.
And you viewers, that's what happens in the most crime and drug and impoverished parts of America, where there's a significant lot of people hooked on crack. They sell their children. And so I'm not going to stand back here and just not say anything about that. And I'm going to make you laugh and then bring you on in and tell you what the real deal is out here and allow you to do what you did, which is a service to all of our viewers who don't recognize that crack has destroyed generations of our people.
Yeah, I agree.
Now opioid is doing the same thing to the rural and suburban communities. It's destroying 2 generations of white folks. Thank God the country's acting like it wants to do something about this epidemic. Wish they'd have thought about that with crack. 2 things. 1, humiliation works. Every crackhead I've humiliated and sent to rehab, every single one have come back and said thank you. Every single. So you all uppity ups that don't like the way I talk to folks whose life and reality I know because I've seen and lived amongst it. I don't care what you think. That's why I want your mother to come in here.
Yes.
Defendant Leticia Anderson believes the plaintiff is her half-sister, but the plaintiff has doubts because her mother was a drug-addicted prostitute.
Let me get some background from you.
My name is Leticia Anderson. I am her sister. We have the same dad, different moms.
How long have you all been associated?
Since I was introduced to her at 8 years old
Good.
through my grandmother,
Okay.
which is his mother, and I was told that she was my sister at that time. Never knew of her before then. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts, separated when I was like 4 or 5 years old. We moved. He stayed in the Bay. We moved to Southern California. From that point on, I could contact him. He's always been in my life. But I didn't live with him. I didn't grow up with him. So when I found out about Latoya, was when I was 8. My grandma took me there for the summer. So I was excited. You know, I got a sister. From that point on, we didn't keep contact because we were young. And so it was like only when I would go there, maybe sometimes I would be able to see her. But, you know.
What was your life like growing up?
My life was different. We're like night and day. I grew up, my mother's a preacher's kid, so I had a good life. I went to school. My mom raised us singly by herself, and I had never any problems in life. I was just.
And see, everything is being attributed, hope folks are listening, to parents. You ladies, if you don't mind, you're in your decade of 40s, 50s, what?
40s.
40s, 50s?
44.
Okay, all the way into your 40s. You're able, as am I, as am most people, whether they know it or not, can contribute most of who they are to their parents.
Yes.
So it's parenting, folks. She was abandoned by her mom to crack and abused and neglected in the worst ways. You were raised by a spiritually headed family, structured as a family strong institution where you were force-fed spiritual principles that your pastor father taught. You know you didn't want to do that. They had to force-feed you. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
See, you didn't want to obey all them rules. You can't go this, you can't do that. All them other girls out there being fast, and you can't do nothing. So I know you were mad, but you had to.
Yes.
And so that's why I tell parents, force-feed it. And in the end, they'll come back and say, I'm all right, Judge, and it's because of my parents. And you've overcome that. And that's why I'm so proud to hear that about your part of the family, that you were able to overcome that.
My mom and dad were high school sweethearts, separated when I was like 4 or 5 years old. We moved. He stayed in the Bay. We moved to Southern California. From that point on, I could contact him. He's always been in my life. But I didn't live with him. I didn't grow up with him. So when I found out about Latoya, was when I was 8. My grandma took me there for the summer. So I was excited. You know, I got a sister.
Defendant Leticia Anderson believes the plaintiff is her half-sister, but the plaintiff has doubts because her mother was a drug-addicted prostitute.
So tell me about the question of siblingship, for lack of a better term. Why is there a question? You all met each other at 8. It was stated. You all were introduced as that. What happened?
It's questionable to me because of my mother's actions, of her trying to get me away, first of all. It's questionable also because I've attended some family barbecues and I was treated a little harshly. I had a lady come up to me and ask me what was my name. And after I told her, she said, "Oh, so-and-so finally claims you?" So then I was another occasion to where I went to a barbecue and he was there and I tried to hug him and he kept his arms straight at his side. So all those things gave me doubt into where I feel like, okay, I'm about to be 45 this year. At least I can know who my dad is.
What's your opinion of it? What's your analysis? Do you have a theory, or what did you see, feel?
I feel bad because, like I said, I wasn't raised with that side of the family, which is my dad.
Okay, so
and she was.
Got it.
So all of her life, she's been told by my grandmother and all them that, yes, you are my granddaughter, you're our niece or whatever. But the treatment has not been like if you are that type of relative. I, on the other hand, was not raised with them, but I know all of them, some of them, most. And I've been treated with no problem. I'm his daughter. And so when she would reach out to me, my sister goes dormant sometimes. So one minute she's there, the next minute she's gone. We don't live too far from each other. Well, I'm Southern, she's Northern. But it's been 4 years since I've seen my sister because one minute she's there, the next minute she starts feeling some type of way about, okay, I'm not his daughter, so let me just basically go hide myself. And then I have to keep reaching out to her and keep encouraging her, keep pushing her. You know, it's going to be all right.
Cause, I hate to keep going back, but the root cause of what I'm hearing is a crack. Is crack. It destroys 3 generations or 3 groups of family institutions. The crack addict themselves, the grandparent who has to raise them, or the aunt that has to raise them, and then the child. Thank God you're able to turn this around. It sounds like an end that, and so we're glad to hear that. But the worst part is that you're not certain about your heritage, and that's destroying you in some sense. Even though you seem to have been strong enough to overcome all the obstacles, it rightfully is destroying you not to know who your blood relatives are. And so once again, this about the curse, but this doggone dumping of the crack. What was the last thing your mother told you about this? What has been her opinion or statement?
So, the last thing that I talked to her about was
about Miss Anderson. I'm referring to.
Oh, about my sister.
Your sister.
Yeah, she just always told me that she was my sister.
Okay, and she's sticking. All right, she's still there. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, you guys are not blood sisters, and that's crack. Again, this is what crack does, folks. Why are you always talking about crack?
Right.
Because this is what it does. Because this is what it does. And this is what's happening now in the opioid community with fentanyl, with what's the stuff they drink? Lean. You know what they drink, young man. Your generation drink that lean. Don't come in here acting like you don't know what it is. I look at you, I ask, I'm figuring try to get the young man to help me out. I don't know you. Lean, you know what it is. God bless you guys. Hopefully you can continue a friendship, a relationship of some sort.
Forever.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. I would just like to say that you're going to always be my sister until we are dead and gone. You always have my back, and I'm going to always love you for that.
Always. I love you.
I love you more.
And you will always be my sister no matter what. And we will keep going positive, and we will stay in contact no matter what the situation is.